Welcome to the Driven Moms Answering Adversity interview series, stories of success through setbacks from Mom Elevated. Together, we can shine a light on how normal challenges and struggles are, along with how we can overcome and rise above them. And today we have Rachel to share her story with us today. I'm super excited to dive in. So if you don't mind, go ahead and just share a little bit about your story with us and who you are and what you do.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for the invitation. Really looking forward to this conversation. So, I'm Rachel Collins, and I'm an author and an artist. And I also am very passionate about mindful productivity. And so, I have a little bit of a story to tell around how I was able to still, retain all of the creative things I love to do, even during a time of family crisis and family stress.
Oh, wow. Okay. That sounds very interesting. Well, on
Mhm.
that note, then, what adversity have you answered and how?
Yeah, we had gone through a bit of a family health crisis. And so I work full-time professionally. I'm a mother. I have, responsibilities and obligations towards aging parents as well. And so just a lot of things on the go. And added into all that mix, we then had a family member that had, quite a critical health crisis hit. And so just a radical change of life and just a lot of personal stress. And during that time period, I went through, I would say, a little bit of a mourning period for lots of things, right? And so one was, how am I going to get through this, right? Just that sense of responsibility and trying to kind of make everything right for everyone. And then the second layer of that morning was, doing everything and I'm exhausted, and where's the time for myself? And so I've had a couple of girlfriends kind of, I'd say, call me out on it, right? And we were in a coffee shop. I was sobbing. I was trying to figure out, like, how I was going to do meal prep and menu planning and all this other stuff. And one of them just turned to me and she's like, "What are you doing for yourself?" And I hadn't through everything, right? It was like there's this certain situation, I'm going to deal with it. I'm going to make everything right. And I really hadn't taken the time to think about what I was going to do to make it sustainable for myself long term, but also to still show up in a way that was joyful and that was fulfilling for myself to help me, be in the situation for the longer haul. And so that was an absolute gift, right? That just kind of reminder that, you have to put yourself into that equation. It can't always be about everybody else. And that, when you do take that time for yourself, then I actually ended up showing up better for other people, right? And so what felt like a little bit of a selfish move at first actually was what allowed me to be in it for the long haul and really take care of the people that I love.
I think that's so beautiful. And what an important reminder that you can't run on fumes all the time. Like at some point, those run out too. So
Hmm.
that's so, so important. And it's something that I think a lot of moms, we do, we get lost in showing up for other people. That I think sometimes we just even forget that we aren't showing up for ourselves. I don't think that it's intentional. I think there's so many other things that we can be doing that's what we choose to do often, and I love that. One of the biggest things I advocate for is creating space. You don't have
Mm,
to fill that space, but you should create that space.
yeah,
And I think that's so so wise. Oh
yeah.
man, I can't even imagine how transformative that was in that moment to be like, you know what, you're right, you're right, I am important. I do need
Yes.
this.
Yeah.
Even with the chaos that you deal with, because that's never going to go away.
No.
Even if it shifts and morphs, and there's always something you're going to be dealing with. But especially in the middle of somebody else's crisis, that you're like,
Yeah.
you almost feel bad because you're like, well, they need me, but they need.
That's right. They need me. And then, do I take this time for myself, right? But what I realized through that, like, it was interesting because there's this, I think, a stripping away of the inessential, right? So there's this, it like in the person is fine now, right? So I can kind of look back and go, oh, in some ways, and in some ways this was a gift, right? Because once we got through that, like, we were stronger, but we also individually and as a family really had an opportunity to kind of take a look at like where was our time going, where was our energy going, how were we showing up for each other? And, this absolute stripping away of things that were inessential or, were obligations that, we had that, we could, renegotiate, right? And so there ended up being this kind of a bit of a sacred time or kind of a spaciousness of time to really like think through in a more fundamental way, like what do we want our lives to look like and what really matters to us. And so we were very, very fortunate. We came out of this stronger. We came out of this, more connected. And one of the things that I did for myself is I was kind of, that's a lot of stuff to process, right? And so I got really good about journaling every day. And I found that that was a way of just staying connected to what mattered to me. It was a way of being able to kind of name things, reflect on things, see if the same types of, stressors or themes were coming up over and over. And it just was such a great practice that I would continue that. And so one of the gifts that came out of this for me was I actually ended up putting together like a book of the journal prompts that I was using. And so, out of this crisis came this book, which is Insights and Inspirations, and it's 300 journal prompts for cultivating joy, mindfulness, and gratitude. And, really lived it. They were super helpful for me. And then I had the opportunity to share it with others. So it felt like finding a way to use my larger voice and support other people the way I had supported myself.
I love it. Can you show that one more time? It is
Yeah.
beautiful. It is stunning, first of all. I love that. And, and
Thank
how,
you. I designed that one. So art
oh,
and
thanks.
writing are my creative passions.
I love that. No, I think that's incredible. And absolutely, what a way to share what was so transformative for you in a
hmm
way that helps others and supports others. I think that's great. Do you also find in journaling that sometimes it's not even, it helps you obviously process and see things that are happening, but does it also, do you see, at least for me, when I choose to do things like that, or even like meditating or taking a moment to reflect, do you find that it also just allows you to acknowledge something that might be bothering you, but you really just need to acknowledge it and then you can move on from it? It's not even something like it just helps you release a lot.
Yeah, yeah, it does, right? Because it's like if you can name it, right, then you can make choices around it. And so, as long as it's this, something's bugging me, but I don't know what, it's really hard to make like effective decisions. But, if you see day after day, okay, like the same thing is bugging me, then you have a choice to make, right? You're like, okay, this is how I'm going to address it. This is what I'm going to do about it, or I'm going to choose to let this go, right? But at least you're aware of those patterns because you can look back and go, okay, this is not just a one-off theme. Like this is coming up repeatedly. What do I want to do? So I definitely think there's a real power in doing this. If you're honest with yourself through the process.
I love that. And taking the time to do it. That was,
hmm
I think, the hardest part for me because I used to have a diary. Who didn't when they were younger?
Yeah.
And I used it religiously. So as I got older and I stopped using it, like coming back and taking a moment, even to just sit down and do gratitudes and a daily reflection or something that doesn't take long at all. But in your mind, you've built it up and you're like, I don't have an hour to spend doing it. It doesn't take that long.
Yeah.
But like getting in back into that habit was really difficult actually for me to be like, I'm gonna set this time aside, even if it only takes 5 minutes and do it. Um, I don't know what it is that blocks us from that, but we build it up to be this huge task and it's usually not. So do
Yeah.
you find that you do that better in the morning or at night?
I do it better at night. Like I find the mornings are a scramble, right? You're doing the breakfast, getting the kid out the door, getting to work, right? I'm not a morning person to begin with, so that probably doesn't help. I work with a lot of people that are on Eastern time. I'm on Western time, so every morning is a little bit of a scramble. But what I find is if at the evening, if I can kind of do that, at least an hour before bed, it starts to shift me into a space of self-care, right? And so, as you said, it doesn't take a lot of time, right? It's, maybe 5 minutes of meditation, 5 or 10 minutes of journaling, but having that feeling that that's like a sacred time, and it's a time for me, right, is I think really important. And then I'm less likely to, waste my time doing other things, right? So I'm not going to be watching that hour of TV. I'm going to do something that involves, self-care or connection or joy instead. Or I'm going to take the time, after I do that to maybe, do something with my art supplies, right? But I find that, if I can reflect in the evening, that instead of kind of getting to a place where I'm just overtired, I want to turn off the brain, right? I can really make better choices because I am doing that self-care. And you're right, like it doesn't have to be a lot of time, but I think it's making it a habit that's hard for people. And it's also putting ourselves first, right? It's like it's funny, like we don't think, hey, I'm selfish if I'm watching an hour of TV, right? But oh my goodness, 5 minutes to meditate. I'm doing something just for me, right? So I think the way that we use our time is something that we have a lot of judgments around. But it's really important. And I don't feel like you have to have a lot of time. And so the other th gift I'd say that came out of this is I developed a formula for myself, which I call the focus flow formula. It's the next book that I'm writing is around this. And it's around, first of all, really prioritizing how you want to use your time. And so what I did around that was I realized, like, what are those things that connect to my passions, my values, my larger sense of purpose, right? How I want to show up in the world, the gifts that I have to give. And so that really kind of big picture thinking or visioning, and then identifying just one or two things that I can do that really feed into helping create that life that I want to live. And so it's not that I have to have a lot of time, but when I do have those pockets of time, I want to use them really well to work on something I truly care about. And so I think having that kind of combination of like this, larger picture thinking of like the envisioning of life, right? And the envisioning what's possible, and then connecting that to like, actions that you can take, and then making that a habit, right? Of doing something in small pieces every day. Not waiting for, okay, when am I going to have an hour of time, or when am I going to have a day to myself, right? Not waiting for those things that, may never happen, right?
Yeah.
But really just kind of carving out, 20 minutes a time, 45 minutes a time, like where can I, really do something that's going to give me joy and going to feed my soul and going to help me achieve something that I want in this world. And so I really believe you don't have to have a lot of time. If you just have to be really careful around how you use the time.
Absolutely. 100%. I think that's so great. I'm also very into time management and energy management, and I think that's a big part of it is being intentional with your
Mm.
actions and your what you're doing, what you're choosing to do, and how that ripple effect will really amplify what you're doing. So I love that so
Yeah.
much. The focus flow formula. And also the
Hmm.
fun. Who doesn't like an alliteration? Come on.
Exactly.
That's fantastic. Beautiful. How does that kind of go into then productivity? Because again, that's kind of what you do as well. So how does the focus flow formula, I mean, I know I can deduce it, but how do
Yeah.
you explain that in being productive and making sure that those intentional actions are really, really what you want, what you need, and you're using that wisely?
Yeah, that is a great question because I think when we think of productivity, we think of like, high efficiency, right? So robot person must get it all done. No, like this is really around mindful productivity. And so it's around connecting in with what matters to you, why it matters, being able to kind of name that, right? And then identifying out of that, not, here's 100 things I need to do, but here's the one or two things that I can really focus on that are going to move the dial most significantly to help me achieve what it is that I truly care about. And so it's both around kind of that following your intuition and that self-discovery of like what matters to you and why, right? So you're working on the right things. but then it's also working on them in the right way. And so not, setting yourself up for failure by saying, here's the, 5 things or 10 things I must get done. Like we're all busy people. We all have many obligations. We've talked about time as a pressure here, right? And so, what's the one thing, the 2 things that I can really focus on, that we're going to make the biggest difference. And so that is really where the mindful productivity piece comes in. And then the other thing that I love to do is a lot of people work in time blocks, and I think that that's a great way to go. But I integrated into my time blocks kind of some mindfulness activities so that when I'm doing them, I also feel really good about the work. And so I approach it with a sense of calm because I take that time to breathe or to meditate or to do something for like that 5 minutes, journal, whatever it is, but something that kind of puts me in the right frame of mind. So when I enter the flow of that work, I'm then doing it in a way that isn't like coming from a lot of stress and anxiety. It's really kind of being fully present and here and now. And so I love productivity, but not in the sense of like, cramming a whole bunch of stuff in. It's more in the sense of like achieving something I really care about in a way that feels good.
I love that. On that line, then, do you also help others put in those boundaries of when to say no, not filling up their schedule, or if it's not in alignment, if it's not those one or two things, because a lot of times also with moms that guilt comes in and they're like, no, I gotta do this, but you don't actually, like, that's where is that coming from? Where is that expectation? And how do you shift that as well? Is that a big piece? I assume it will be.
It is huge. It's huge, right? It's the hardest piece, I think. It's like you can get clear in your own mind, okay, this is what matters, but then being able to set healthy boundaries around them, make sure that you do get a little bit of time for yourself to do those things. That is tough, right? Like let's be transparent about it. It's not easy, right? And so bringing people along for that journey I think is definitely one of those solutions, not doing it alone in isolation. One of the things I really love to do is kind of try to, build a community of people, right? So we can talk about these things together rather than, just, you know, doing it all on your own and being the only one doing it, right? So that piece definitely helps, but it's not easy to say no. It's not easy to renegotiate expectations that maybe have built up for years. And that's where for me, like as hard as it was to go through, this moment of kind of family health crisis, like in some ways it was really freeing because I was able to really more easily say, sorry, like here's the essential things I'm focused on. This is what I have time for. Like, please understand these are my priorities. And people were really generous around that, in part because of the situation I was in. But having come out of that situation, I've continued those same behaviors. And people are still really generous about it, right? They will accept no. If you negotiate kindly, right? And you're coming from a place of authenticity, right? People will get it. So I think it's hard to do, but as you practice it, it becomes easier. I don't know what your experience is. It looks like you've had some practice in this as well.
Absolutely.
It's not easy, but you can claim your voice and you can do it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think it's something you have to like come back to, and you will just all of a sudden you'll be like, oh, I have crossed so many boundaries myself lately. And you have to kind of come back and reset them over and over again and reassess them. But yeah, it's
Mhm.
it's never ending for sure.
Yeah.
So then on that kind of topic, you said you work full time, right?
I do.
And now you have your book, and now you're getting ready to write the Focus Flow Formula book as well. What do you think it is then about entrepreneurs on this side of things that makes them continue on when it gets challenging, without giving up when times get tough, or continuing to write your books and know that you're sharing something important, while you're still working full time? What do you think it is about us that is like we've got this spark and it's not going to go away?
Yeah. So I think it might be a little bit different for everyone, right? But for me, it's definitely like having a message, right? So knowing what it is I want to say, I gotta say, like, I feel like life is short and life is a gift, and I want to leave a legacy, right? I want to make an impact. And just thinking about life from kind of that big picture lens, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, what I want to look back and say, like, I made a difference. Here's how I did it. That keeps me going. That keeps me motivated. Maybe I'm staying up later at night to write, or I'm negotiating with the family, hey, like, here's what Saturday is going to look like, and everybody else is going to help out so that I can get this hour, right? But I think having that passion, having that message, having a really clear vision of where you want to go,
Mm.
really helps kind of stay motivated when the going gets tough.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I love that. That's a great answer.
Yeah.
So then, again, on a similar vein, what takeaway, overall lesson do you think other moms would be able to take, mompreneurs would be able to take away from your experience specifically?
Yeah. I'm hoping they take away a message of, like, do it with joy and do what gives you joy. Life is short, life is a gift. We all have obligations, but make sure that there's moments for yourself where you're doing something that just fills your soul, something that's just for you. And we each deserve that. And it's just beautiful when you can use your gifts, use your voice, and do something that fulfills you.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I might have to like take that clip and just share that clip, but I think that's so wonderful. And it's something as many times as you hear it, I think it's just hits different every single time because there's going to be a different moment in life that you're in when you hear it. And I don't think you can ever hear it too many times. So thank you for sharing it again. I loved hearing it, so I know that other people will as well. What then is the best way for others to find you, find your book, find what you're working on, be in your space? Where would they find you? I'll have the links in the
Yeah.
description as well, but if they're just listening, they can still find you.
Okay. So my website is passionpurpose.today. And I'm on Substack. So if you follow Substack, it's also Passion Purpose Today. On Substack, I'm doing a daily inspiration quote, some journal prompts, and then I'm sharing with that my mandala art as well. And so that's a really fun way to connect. And then I'm building community around courses. And so I also have a free course that you can access from my website, which is called Mindful Momentum. So if you're interested in testing out mindful productivity and getting into that space, that's a really great way to start.
That's fantastic. Also, did you say passion purpose dot today?
Yeah.
How fun. I love that it's not dot com, nothing like that. Purpose dot today. So clever and unique. I like it a lot. Oh gosh. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure for me, for sure. I hope that you also enjoyed your time. Thank you for sharing your time today with me and being patient, as life is what it is.
Absolutely. It was a real pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much for a great conversation, and love the work that you're doing. I watched quite a few of your interviews, and it's wonderful. You're bringing out the best in everyone and just reminding us, like, why this matters. So thank you. Appreciate the time.
You. Thank you so much. That means a lot to me. And like I always like to tell everybody, your story is inspirational and your willingness to be open about it is not only appreciated, but very much needed in this space, in this time, especially. And I know, I know I needed to hear what you had to share today, so I know others will also. For those of you out there facing your own adversity, know that you're not alone. That's why we do what we do here. And you can obviously go and I'm excited. I'm gonna go get your book, honestly. I can't. I'm excited for journal prompts and getting back into that in a more regular timeline. But honestly, your course sounds phenomenal as well. And who doesn't like positivity? I love words. Great way to
Exactly.
start your day. We
Wonderful.
need an extra hand or mind for brainstorming during your mompreneur journey. We would love to work with you through the Mom Elevated Society. We also have Gift Yourself Grace now, which is a quarterly reflection point, and that next one that will be upcoming after this is in June. So join us for that. And you'll find monthly check-ins for goal setting and assessing, and so much more for both your business and your mom life. And until next time, keep shooting for the stars.